Welcome back. Darling, the fantasy you're about to hear gets very intimate. To hear the full extended ending and see the private artwork, unlock my Patreon using the link below. Now, close your eyes.
Ethan, why are you wearing my dress? The voice cut through the shadows of the bedroom doorway. Olivia's leather briefcase hit the hardwood floor with a heavy thud. I hadn't heard her car pull into the driveway. I hadn't heard the key turn in the front door lock. The only light in the room came from the small amber bulb of my bedside lamp, casting a dim glow over my exposed nylon-clad legs. I froze on the mattress. Oh God. Oh my God. It's over. She's looking right at me. I was lying on my side against our crisp white bed sheets. I was wearing her black lace slip. My legs were crossed at the ankles, tightly wrapped in sheer black tights. My thick, masculine hands were desperately clamped over my stomach, trying to pull the delicate fabric down to cover my body. My chest heaved. I couldn't pull enough oxygen into my lungs. The lace edging of the dress dug softly into my collarbone, a sensation I had craved all day while suffocating in my stiff office suit. But right now, it felt like a burning wire. A drop of cold sweat traced a slow line down my spine. My eyelids felt heavy and stiff. I had spent 20 frantic minutes in the bathroom perfectly applying a thin line of black eyeliner. I even had a swipe of muted red lipstick on my mouth. My throat clamped shut. I swallowed hard, but there was no moisture left. I didn't think you'd be home until 8. Olivia didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stepped fully into the room, her sensible black pumps clicking against the floorboards. I sat up, moving awkwardly. The slippery silk glided against the cotton bedsheets. As I moved, the left strap of the dress slid down my hairy shoulder. I snatched at it, dragging it back up in a frantic, pathetic gesture to protect whatever scrap of dignity I had left. "Take it off!" I expected her to yell. Instead, she walked to the edge of the mattress and stopped. I couldn't look at her face. I stared intensely at the intricate floral pattern of the black lace stretched across my thighs. "How long?" she asked. Her voice wasn't angry. It was shockingly, terrifyingly steady. Lie. My brain screamed at me. Tell her it's a joke. Tell her you lost a bet at work. Tell her it's just a weird sex thing. But my mouth opened, and the truth spilled out of me. The secret I had guarded for 20 years tore its way out of my chest. "Since I was 9, I whispered. I looked down at my hands. They were trembling violently. I pressed my palms hard against my silk-covered thighs, using the tight pressure of the dress to force them still. "My older sister's dress," I continued, my voice shaking. "A stupid bright pink sundress with yellow daisies on it. My mother caught me trying it on in the bathroom mirror." I took a ragged breath. The tight bodice of the slip squeezed my ribs. "She dragged me out. She made me wear it all afternoon, in front of my dad, in front of the neighbors walking by the window. She thought humiliating me would cure me. She thought if I felt ashamed enough, I'd never look at girls' clothes again." Olivia stayed perfectly quiet. She just stood there, watching my chest rise and fall under the lace. But it didn't work. I confessed, the words burning the back of my throat. Because the secret was, I didn't hate it, live, even while I was crying from the shame. I loved the way the thin cotton felt against my skin. I loved how the skirt swished when I shifted my weight. I loved how right it felt. My gaze nervously darted toward the floor, to the dark shadows lurking under our heavy oak bed frame. Olivia followed my eyes. She turned, crouched down, and reached under the bed. I heard the rough scrape of plastic wheels on hardwood. She grabbed the handle of the black canvas suitcase I kept hidden behind the spare winter blankets. Bill rose rapidly in my throat. The heat rushing to my cheeks was so intense my face physically throbbed. Every muscle in my back locked tight. "Please don't open it, please." She reached for the zipper. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the quiet bedroom. She pulled the lid back. Inside was everything I was, a lifetime of stolen moments. Cheap silk nightgowns, dozens of sheer pantyhose in different shades of nude, underwire bras that I awkwardly stuffed with rolled-up socks, a cracked palette of pink blush, a pair of size 11 black kitten heels I had bought off the internet. It was an entire, pathetic secret world stuffed into a carry-on bag. She reached her hand in. The fabric rustled. She picked up a crimson satin thong, holding it lightly by the delicate strap. The satin caught the amber light of the lamp. "Is this all of it?" she asked softly, her eyes studying the tiny piece of underwear. Yes, I choked out, my vision blurred. Hot tears pricked the corners of my eyes, threatening to ruin my carefully applied eyeliner. She dropped the satin back into the suitcase. She stood up, brushing off the knees of her tailored work trousers, and walked back over to me. She looked down at me, a broad-shouldered man, shivering in a delicate women's nightgown, makeup smeared across my face, drowning in absolute terror. "Ethan," she said, "look at her. Face it." I forced my chin up, meeting her brown eyes. "How does it make you feel?" she asked, her gaze drifting down to the black lace covering my chest, and then back up to my painted lips. "When you're alone in here, wearing this, how does it actually feel?" I closed my eyes. For the first time all night, I stopped trying to fight the physical reality of what I was wearing. I let myself actually feel the smooth, cool glide of the satin resting against my hips. I felt the tight, secure, comforting grip of the nylon tights hugging my calves and thighs. I felt the weight of the mascara on my lashes. The shame suddenly vanished, replaced by a hollow, exhausting ache. "Like I can breathe," I whispered. The silence that followed was so thick I could choke on it. I opened my eyes, waiting for her to turn around, walk out the door, and pack her bags. Instead, Olivia took a slow, deep breath, crossing her arms over her chest. She looked at the suitcase, then looked at me, her eyes calculating, sharp and entirely unreadable. I barely slept that night. I just lay there on the edge of the mattress in my oversized gray sweatpants, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the axe to fall. But morning came, and the axe didn't swing. Instead, I found Olivia in the kitchen. The pale morning sun was slicing through the blinds, casting stripes of light across the granite countertops. The smell of dark roast coffee filled the air. She was sitting at the island sipping from her favorite ceramic mug, already dressed in a sharp navy blazer for her morning meetings. I stood in the doorway, barefoot, my stomach twisting into tight, painful knots. My palms were sweating so much I had to wipe them on my sweatpants. "Sit," she said, not looking up from her tablet. I pulled out a metal bar stool and sat down heavily. The cold metal seeped through my clothes. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "This is it," I thought. "She's calling a divorce lawyer." Olivia finally set her tablet down and folded her hands. She looked right at me. "I thought about this all night. Ethan," she began, her tone strictly business. "You have this need, this secret, and hiding it is making you miserable." She paused, taking a slow sip of coffee. "But I also thought about us. I am the VP of my firm. I work 60 hours a week to pay the mortgage on this house. And lately, when I come home, the sink is full of dishes, the laundry is piled up, and we are eating takeout." She leaned forward, locking her brown eyes onto mine. "So if you want to live like this, we are going to do it right." I blinked, my brain scrambling to process her words. "Do it right? What do you mean?" "I mean, we are making a deal," she said flatly. "I will be the provider, but from now on, you are managing this house. You cook the meals, you do the laundry, you vacuum the floors, you go to the grocery store." I swallowed hard. "Okay, I can do that." "I'm not finished," she interrupted. She set her mug down with a sharp clink. "You will do every single one of those chores, dressed as a woman." All the air rushed out of my lungs. The blood drained from my face, leaving my cheeks feeling freezing cold. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I gripped the edge of the marble counter, my knuckles turning white. In a dress," I stammered, my voice cracking completely. "All day." Olivia just nodded, completely unfazed. "All day, if you want to feel like a woman? Ethan, you're going to work like one." My chest tightened. Panic and a strange, thrilling surge of adrenaline violently crashed into each other in my veins. "Liv, She stood up, picking up her car keys from the counter. "Come with me. We're starting right now." I followed her like a dog on a leash into our master bedroom. She walked straight past her perfectly organized closet and knelt on the floor, dragging out my secret black suitcase from under the bed. She unzipped it, throwing back the lid. She began tossing things onto the mattress. "No more cheap nightgowns," she muttered, digging through the messy pile. "If you're going to be a housewife, you're going to dress like a proper one." She pulled out a few items and arranged them on the quilt. A pair of sheer, nude pantyhose, a white lace underwire bra, a simple, light blue cotton midi dress with a modest neckline. "Finally," She tossed a pair of beige, round-toe ballet flats next to the pile. "Put it on," she commanded. My hands shook violently as I reached for the bra. I usually just slip these on in the dark, clumsily twisting the straps, but the morning light was blinding. Under Olivia's watchful eye, I fumbled with the delicate white lace. I slipped my thick arms through the thin elastic straps, reaching around my back. My clumsy fingers tried to line up the tiny metal hooks. Come on, I thought. My frustration mounting as the hook slipped past the eyes. My shoulders ached from the unnatural angle. Finally, with a soft snap, the clasp caught. I let out a breath. The elastic snapped tight against my ribcage. It wasn't digging in painfully, but it was there, a constant, physical pressure around my chest. Next came the pantyhose. I sat on the edge of the bed, rolling the sheer nylon down to the toe with trembling thumbs. I slipped my foot in, feeling the tight, artificial skin grip my toes, my ankle, my calf. The friction against my leg hair was intense at first, a pulling sensation, but as I stood up and shimmied the waistband up to my hips, that pulling gave way to a deeply comforting, secure squeeze. It felt like my legs were being tightly held. Then, the dress. I picked up the light blue cotton. It was heavier than I expected. I pulled it over my head. The fabric tumbled down over my shoulders, sliding smoothly past my waist. The hem settling gently around my calves. "Turn around," Olivia said. I obeyed, my bare feet pivoting on the carpet. I felt her cool fingers brush against the bare skin of my back as she grabbed the small metal zipper. The teeth locked together, dragging the fabric taut. The dress instantly grabbed me, the bodice pulled tight against the white lace bra, shaping my chest, the waist cinched inward, suddenly restricting my ability to take a deep, booming belly breath. To breathe, I had to take shallow breaths into my upper chest. I turned back to face her. I was standing rigid, my arms glued awkwardly to my sides, my posture stiff and defensive. I felt entirely exposed. Despite being completely covered in fabric, my face was burning so hot I felt like I had a fever. Oh God, I look ridiculous. A guy playing dress up. Olivia stared at me. Her eyes scanned from the sensible neckline of the blue cotton, down past my cinched waist, to the hem hanging gracefully over my nylon-clad shins. "You look fine," she said softly. My stomach did a violent flip. "Fine." She tapped her watch. "I have to go to work. The vacuum is in the hall closet. Chicken needs to be defrosted for dinner." Without another word, she turned and walked out of the room. A minute later, the front door slammed shut. I was completely alone. I looked down at myself, my wide, masculine hands resting against a soft skirt of powder blue. I slowly wiggled my toes, then stepped into the beige ballet flats. The firm, rigid squeeze of the toe box immediately forced me to alter my balance. I couldn't just lumber forward on my heels anymore. The thin soles demanded lighter, more careful steps. I walked out to the hallway, my gait stilted and clumsy. Click, click, click. The tiny heels of the flats hit the floorboards. I grabbed the heavy vacuum cleaner from the hall closet. Grasping the chunky plastic handle felt violently contrasting to the delicate lace digging into my ribcage. I hit the power button. The motor roared to life. I started pushing it across the living room rug. At first, it was an absolute disaster. I was hyper-aware of every single millimeter of my body. Every time I lunged forward to push the vacuum, the blue cotton skirt hitched up my thigh. My immediate instinct was panic. I stopped pushing, let go of the machine, and frantically dragged the hem back down to my knees. Cover up, my brain panicked. Ingrained with decades of masculine modesty, I took another step. The thin straps of the bra dug into my shoulders as I dragged the heavy machine backward. I was stiff, fighting the clothes instead of wearing them. My back ached because I was keeping my spine completely rigid, terrified I would tear a seam if I bent over normally. 10 minutes passed. I was sweating under the cotton. But then, as I moved to vacuum around the coffee table, I had to twist my body sideways to reach a tight corner. I reached out, stepping over the cord. The dress twisted with me. The fabric didn't fight back. It flowed as I pulled my arm back. The skirt swished lightly around my nylon-wrapped calves. The breeze from my movement brushed gently underneath the hem. It was incredibly cooling. I stopped. I let go of the vacuum handle. I stood in the middle of the living room, simply breathing, The tight, shallow breaths forced by the bodice didn't feel restrictive anymore. They felt stabilizing. The sheer pantyhose gripping my legs felt like an armor of softness. I reached down and wiped my hands on the front of my dress. A wave of strange, bizarre calmness washed over my frantic mind. The hot, throbbing panic in my cheeks finally faded. I wasn't Ethan, the failing husband hiding a dirty secret under the bed. Right now, in this bright living room, accompanied by the hum of an appliance, I was just a person doing chores. I grabbed the vacuum handle again. Adjusting my grip, I took a step forward in the ballet flats, planting my toe first, rolling to the heel. It was smooth. I pushed the machine forward, letting the skirt flare out naturally around my knees. And for the first time in my entire life, I completely forgot I was wearing women's clothes. I was simply wearing clothes. Dinner that night was perfectly normal, which was the most terrifying part. I sat across the glass dining table from Olivia, cutting into my roasted chicken. I was still wearing the blue cotton dress. My bare arms rested on the cool glass. Every time I reached for my water glass, the fabric pulled gently across my chest, reminding me of the white lace digging quietly into my ribs. Olivia wiped her mouth with a linen napkin and set her fork down. The quiet clinking of silverware stopped. "We need a name," she said. I froze, a piece of chicken halfway to my mouth. "A name?" I asked, my voice slightly raspy. "For what, a dog?" "For you," she replied evenly. She leaned back in her chair, tilting her head to study me. Not Ethan, her husband of 5 years. She was looking at the person sitting in front of her right now, with a cinched waist and perfectly aligned posture, forced straight by the tight bodice of the dress. "If you're going to manage the house like this, you need a name that fits the clothes. Ethan doesn't wear a blue midi dress and baked chicken," she said. Oh God, she's serious. My stomach did a nervous flip. My pulse throbbed in my neck. Giving it a name meant making it real. It wasn't just a fetish hidden in a suitcase anymore. It was a person sitting at her dining table. She tapped her fingernails against the glass. "How about Vivian?" The word hit the air and seemed to hang there. "Vivian," I whispered. A violently intense shiver shot straight down my spine. The hair on my arm stood up, my cheeks flooded with sudden, prickling heat. Vivian, the name sounded soft. It sounded elegant. It sounded completely foreign, yet, the moment it left my lips, it settled into my chest like a missing puzzle piece snapping into place. "Vivian?" Olivia repeated, a small satisfied smirk playing on her lips. "Wash the dishes, Vivian, we have a big day tomorrow." The big day started in our bedroom at 9 o'clock the next morning. Olivia handed me a hanger. "You are going to the supermarket." Panic immediately closed my throat. "Are you serious?" I choked out. "Liv, I can't. Not outside. Not in the daylight. I'm 6 feet tall. Everyone will stare. Someone will take a picture." "Stop," she commanded, pressing the clothes into my trembling hands. "You wanted to breathe. So go breathe. Put it on. We need milk and eggs." 10 minutes later, I stood staring at my reflection in the full-length mirror. I wasn't wearing a costume. I looked like a suburban woman running errands. I wore a heavy, cream-colored knit midi skirt that flowed gracefully down to my mid-calf. On top, a white camisole, completely hidden by a thick, blush-pink cardigan buttoned up to my collarbone to hide my flat chest. On my feet, a new pair of round-toe, faux leather ballet flats. A thin layer of foundation masked my beard shadow, and my lips were coated in a subtle, clear gloss. My reflection made my chest physically ache. "Is that me?" Olivia tossed her car keys onto the bed. "Go." Walking to the car was a blur of absolute terror. My heart pounded so fiercely I thought it would crack my ribs. But the moment I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch, my senses exploded. A cool autumn breeze swept across the front yard. It didn't just hit my face. It curled around my ankles. It rushed up beneath the hem of my knit skirt, brushing against the thin nylon of my tights. The sensation was electric. I felt the air moving around my legs in a way thick denim jeans had completely blocked for 30 years. I walked down the driveway. Scuff, clack, scuff. The thin soles of my flats hit the rough concrete. My hips naturally swayed just a fraction of an inch to balance the narrow steps. The heavy knit fabric of the skirt swung with me, gently slapping against my calves. I climbed into the driver's seat of Olivia's SUV. I had to physically reach down, grab the heavy cream fabric, and smooth it tightly under my thighs to slide in. That tiny, necessary feminine action sent a rush of pure dopamine straight to my brain. But the euphoria vanished the moment I pulled into the parking lot of the massive grocery store. I turned off the engine. My hands gripped the leather steering wheel so hard my knuckles popped. They're going to know. A guy in a pink sweater, a freak. They're going to laugh. My breath came in shallow, panicked gasps. The white lace bra felt suffocating. I closed my eyes, squeezed the steering wheel one last time, and forced myself out of the car. The automatic glass doors of the supermarket slid open. The blast of over-conditioned air hit my face, smelling of overly sweet bakery bread and damp lettuce. Harsh, bright fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. There were no shadows here, nowhere to hide. I grabbed a metal shopping cart with sweaty palms. The wheels squeaked loudly. I hunched my shoulders forward, desperately trying to shrink my frame, tugging the pink cardigan tightly across my chest. Just get the milk. Just get the milk. I kept my eyes glued to the scuffed linoleum floor. An elderly woman pushed past me in the produce aisle. I flinched, bracing for the insult. She didn't even look up from her tomatoes. A guy in a baseball cap walked right by me in the cereal aisle. He completely ignored me. They don't care. They literally don't care. By the time I reached the dairy section in the back of the store, the tight iron grip in my chest started to loosen. I stood in front of the massive glass refrigerators, feeling the freezing air seep through the thin knit of my skirt, raising goosebumps on my nylon-clad legs. I reached up for a gallon of whole milk on the top shelf. As I stretched, the sleeve of my cardigan caught the edge of a plastic price tag. Clatter. A row of butter boxes tumbled off the shelf, hitting the floor right at my feet. "Oh, damn it," I muttered, my deep voice rumbling in my chest. I slapped a hand over my mouth, terrified someone had heard me. I squatted down clumsily, trying to keep my knees together to keep my skirt from hiking up. My flat squeaked on the cold floor. I was fumbling, dropping the boxes as quickly as I picked them up. My hands were shaking again. "Excuse me." The voice came from right behind me. I froze. My stomach violently dropped. A cold sweat instantly broke out on the back of my neck. This is it, security. They're kicking me out. I slowly stood up, turning around, clutching a box of salted butter to my chest like a shield. A teenage employee wearing a green apron was standing there, holding a clipboard. He looked bored out of his mind. "Mammo," he asked, pointing casually toward the dropped boxes. "Do you need me to grab the rest of those for you?" The store went completely silent in my head. The hum of the refrigerators vanished. "Ma'am." He was looking right at my face, right at my pink cardigan, right at my makeup. And he didn't see Ethan, the man in a dress. He just saw a tall, awkward woman dropping butter in aisle 6. A massive, overwhelming wave of warmth flooded my chest. It felt like holding my breath underwater for 2 minutes and finally breaking the surface. I cleared my throat, pitching my voice just slightly softer, slightly higher. "No, thank you," I said softly, flashing him a shy, trembling smile. "I've got it. No problem, have a good one," he mumbled, walking away without a second glance. I stood completely paralyzed in the cold dairy aisle. I stared at the green and white linoleum tiles beneath my beige ballet flats. A single, hot tear broke loose, sliding down my cheek, catching in my lip gloss. It tasted like salt. Driving home, everything felt utterly different. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden glow over the dashboard. I kept one hand on the steering wheel. I let my other hand rest softly on the cream-colored fabric draped across my thigh. I rubbed the thick, ribbed knit between my thumb and forefinger, feeling the texture. I looked at my own hand, the clear polish on the nails, the soft pink sleeve rolled up to the wrist. I took a deep breath, inflating my lungs as far as the bra would allow. The panic was entirely gone. As the car cruised down the suburban streets, a profound, terrifying realization clicked perfectly into place inside my mind. I wasn't Ethan wearing a costume to clean the house anymore. I wasn't just surviving a punishment or indulging a bizarre fantasy. When that boy looked at me, I felt real. For the first time in 30 years, I wasn't pretending. I was just living. The heavy green plastic watering can dug into the palm of my hand. I stood in our front yard, bathed in the sharp, golden light of early Tuesday morning. The air smelled of damp topsoil and the sweet, heavy scent of the pink geraniums lining our porch. I was wearing a yellow, floral print sundress that hit just above my knees. The thin spaghetti straps rested lightly on my bare shoulders. My toes were exposed in a pair of cork-bottom wedge sandals. My nails painted a soft, glossy peach. I tilted the watering can. The water shushed over the dark soil. Just a housewife. Just a woman doing her chores. My mind repeated the mantra, but my body betrayed me. Beneath the thin yellow cotton, my heart thumped a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The morning breeze caught the hem of my dress, fluttering the fabric against my bare, freshly shaved thighs. The sensation was thrilling, terrifying, and completely exposing. Anyone driving by could see me. "Good morning." The cheerful voice snapped like a twig behind me. My breath caught in my throat. I completely missed the flower pot, spilling cold water over the toes of my sandals. I flinched, my shoulders instantly hunching upward. Slowly, agonizingly, I turned my head. A woman in her late 50s, wearing a crisp white tennis skirt and a visor, was walking her golden retriever down the sidewalk. Grace Mitchell. She lived 3 houses down. I had waved to her a dozen times while wearing my gray suits and mowing the lawn. My stomach plummeted. A freezing prickle of dread crawled up my scalp. She knows. She's going to scream. She's going to call the cops. But Grace just stopped at the edge of my driveway, the dog pulling at the leash. She tilted her head, giving me a warm, neighborly smile. "I don't think we've met. Did you just move in?" she asked brightly. I stood paralyzed. My knuckles turned white around the handle of the watering can, my brain completely flatlined. I opened my mouth, but my throat was painfully dry. Before I could force a squeak out, the front door opened behind me. Olivia stepped onto the porch, holding her briefcase. She didn't miss a beat. She walked down the concrete steps, placing a firm, stabilizing hand against the small of my back. Her fingers pressed into my spine, sending a jolt of confidence straight into my nervous system. "Grace, hi," Olivia called out, her voice effortlessly smooth. "This is Vivian. She's staying with me for a while." Grace's eyes lit up. "Oh, wonderful. It's so nice to meet you. Vivian, your dress is just darling. That yellow really brings out your skin tone." My chest squeezed. "Darling," the word floated in the air, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. "Thank you," I stammered, pitching my voice softly. I offered a shaky, terrified smile. I like your dog." "Oh, Buster is a menace," Grace laughed, tugging the leash. "Listen, a few of the ladies on the block get together for coffee on Thursday mornings. Just gossip and too many pastries. You should come over at 10 o'clock. "God, she would love that." Olivia answered for me, her hand squeezing my waist. Grace waved and walked away. I dropped the watering can onto the grass. It hit the dirt with a hollow thud. My knees buckled slightly, but Olivia caught my arm, pulling me firmly against her side. "Breathe, Viv," she whispered. She invited me to coffee. I gasped, the air rushing back into my lungs. Liv, she didn't see him. She didn't see Ethan at all. "I know," Olivia said softly. She reached up, gently tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. "That's because Ethan isn't here right now." The smell of burnt hairspray, acetone, and expensive argan oil hit my nostrils the second we walked through the glass doors of Goddess Beauty Studio. It was a sanctuary of white marble floors, bright vanity lights, and the loud buzzing chatter of women. I kept my head down, my hands clamped tightly around the clasp of my leather purse. I was wearing high-waisted, wide-legged trousers and a silk blouse. Every swish of the fabric against my legs felt dangerously loud. "Appointment for Vivian," Olivia told the receptionist. A tall, striking woman with sharply angled cheekbones and platinum blonde hair walked out from the back. She wore a black leather apron over her clothes. Isabelle Laurent. Olivia had told me she was the most exclusive stylist in the city. Isabelle walked up to me. She didn't say a word. She just crossed her arms, tilted her head, and studied my face. Her dark eyes scanned my jawline, my nose, my shoulders. I felt like a bug under a microscope. Heat flooded my cheeks, my face burning under the harsh salon lights. "We have potential here," Isabelle finally announced. Her voice had a thick French accent. "Sit." For the next 2 hours, I was trapped in the leather salon chair. Isabelle spun me away from the mirror. I had absolutely no idea what she was doing. I closed my eyes, entirely surrendering to the physical sensations. First came the tweezers, sharp, stinging plucks around my brow bone. I winced as she forcefully thinned out the thick, bushy caterpillars above my eyes, reshaping them into high, delicate arches. Then came the hair, the tugging of the brush, the hot, scorching breath of the blow-dryer against my neck. She added expensive, clip-in extensions that cascaded down past my shoulders. The extra weight swinging against my collarbones felt completely alien, yet thrillingly correct. Finally, the makeup, not my clumsy, nervous bathroom routine. This was armor, the soft, cooling glide of a primer, the rhythmic tapping of a damp beauty blender pushing foundation into my skin, erasing the heavy shadows, the soft bristle of a brush sweeping powder across my cheekbones, the precise, tickling scrape of an eyeliner pencil. "Open," Isabel commanded. I opened my lips. She dragged a velvet-textured lipstick across my mouth. The color was a deep bruised plum. Done. Isabel grabbed the back of the leather chair. With a sharp tug, she spun me around to face the massive, brightly lit mirror. My breath instantly stopped. I gripped the cold metal armrest so hard my fingers ached. The person staring back at me wasn't a man in a wig. The hard, square angles of my jaw had been softened by masterful contouring. My eyes looked twice as large, framed by long, dark lashes that cast a shadow on my upper cheeks. My lips looked full, pouting, deeply feminine. The long waves of hair cascaded around my face, framing it in a way that drew the eye entirely away from my broad shoulders. I raised a trembling hand. My manicured fingers touched the reflection in the glass. A lump the size of a golf ball formed in my throat. My vision blurred, hot. Stinging tears threatened to ruin Isabel's hard work. I blinked them away furiously, taking short, gasping breaths into my chest, the silk blouse tightening against my bra. Olivia stepped into the frame, standing right behind my chair. She placed both hands delicately on my shoulders. Our eyes met in the mirror. "Wow," Olivia breathed. She leaned down, pressing her lips lightly to my temple. "You're beautiful, Vivian." The word broke me. I squeezed my eyes shut, a single tear escaping, tracking hot and wet down my heavily powdered cheek. The dim amber lighting of Trattoria Rossi cast long shadows across our corner booth. The air was thick with the rich scent of roasted garlic, melting truffle butter, and spilled red wine. I sat across from Olivia, a glass of Pinot Noir in my hand. I felt incredible, untouchable. I was wearing a crimson silk wrap dress that clung perfectly to my curves, the deep V-neck showing off a delicate silver pendant Olivia had bought me. Underneath the table, I subtly shifted my weight. The slick silk slid gracefully against my nylon-sheathed legs. My calves flexed as I lightly kicked off my pointed-toe black pumps, rubbing my stocking toes against the plush carpet. "Are you happy?" Olivia asked, leaning across the white tablecloth. "I've never felt like this," I whispered, swirling the dark red wine in my glass. I couldn't stop smiling. My newly shaped lips curled upward instinctively. I feel like I don't have to monitor my own brain anymore. I just get to exist. Olivia reached across the table, her thumb gently brushing against my knuckles. The touch was electric. For the first time in years, our intimacy didn't feel strained by a massive, invisible wall of shame. "Ethan." The voice boomed over the clinking of the silverware. It was loud, deep, unmistakably male. The wine glass froze halfway to my mouth. Every single drop of warmth evaporated from my veins, replaced by an agonizing, freezing surge of terror. The hair on my arm stood straight up. My stomach didn't just drop, it violently twisted into a painful knot. I slowly turned my head, the long waves of my hair falling over my shoulder. Standing right beside our table was Victor Black. We had played college football together. We used to drink cheap beers and complain about our bosses at a sports bar downtown. He was wearing a tight polo shirt, a smug, confusing grin plastered across his face. His eyes darted from the red silk wrapped tightly around my chest, up to my dangling silver earrings, and finally, dead-centered onto my plum-painted lips. "Holy shit," Victor breathed out, his grin twisting into something cruel, something utterly disgusted. "It is you. I told my wife," I said. "That big bitch in the corner looks exactly like Ethan Hartley." The restaurant seemed to fall entirely silent. My ears rang with a high-pitched whine. I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but only a pathetic, raspy squeak came out. My chest hitched, the bodice of the wrap dress suddenly feeling like an iron cage crushing my ribs. I shrank back into the leather booth, trying to make myself as small as physically possible. I crossed my arms tightly over my chest, pulling the silk higher, desperate to hide. "What the hell is this, man?" Victor barked. Stepping closer, his voice was getting louder, drawing the eyes of the tables around us. "Is this a bachelor party joke, or did you completely lose your damn mind?" "Victor, back away," Olivia said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was sliced from pure ice. "Stay out of this, Liv." Victor sneered, leaning heavily onto our table. The wine glasses rattled. He reached out, his thick, hairy hand grabbing the fabric of my shoulder. "Come on, man. Stand up. Take the wig off. You look like a damn freak." He yanked my shoulder. The movement was abrupt. I scrambled backward in panic, trying to pull away from his grip. My heel caught on the edge of the booth. I lost my balance entirely, slipping off the leather cushion. My forearm slammed violently against the sharp wooden edge of the table. I cried out, my voice slipping into its natural, deeper register. The sharp sting of torn skin flared up my arm. Smack. The sound echoed sharply across the dining room. Olivia had slapped Victor's hand away, her palm striking his wrist so hard a bright red welt instantly formed. She stood up, completely eclipsing him in her rage. "Do not touch her," Olivia hissed, her brown eyes blazing with absolute fury. "If you ever put your hands on my wife again, I will tear you apart. Now get the hell out of my sight." Victor stumbled back. Holding his wrist, he looked around. Half the restaurant was staring at him, his face flushed and ugly, angry purple. "You're both sick," he spat, before turning and storming out the heavy glass doors of the restaurant. I sat frozen on the floor of the booth, clutching my arm. A thin trail of blood beaded up along a 2-inch scratch on my forearm. But the physical pain was entirely eclipsed by the agonizing, suffocating shame crushing my chest. "Freak, he called me a freak." Olivia knelt down beside me, completely ignoring the stares of the waiters and the surrounding tables. She wrapped her blazer around my shoulders, hiding the bright red silk from the world. "Come on," she whispered, her voice cracking for the very first time. "Let's go home." We sat in the dark driveway inside Olivia's SUV. The engine was off. The only sound was the rhythmic tapping of the cooling engine block. I was shivering violently. I couldn't stop. My perfectly styled hair was a mess. The expensive plum lipstick was smeared at the corner of my mouth from where I had frantically wiped my hand across my face. I stared out the window at the dark outline of our house, the safe house, the place where the suitcase used to hide. "Did you see the way he looked at me?" I whispered into the dark car. My voice was raw, shredded from holding back sobs. He didn't see Vivian. He just saw a monster, a pathetic man playing dress-up. "Victor is an idiot," Olivia said tightly, her hands still gripping the steering wheel. "He doesn't matter." "He matters because he's right," I yelled, slamming my open palm against the dashboard. The loud crack shocked us both. I let my head fall back against the leather headrest, gasping for air. The tight underwire of my bra dug painfully into my sternum. The nylon suddenly felt like chains. Everything felt synthetic, fake. "I can't do this anymore. Liv," I choked out. Tears finally spilling over my thick mascara, burning my eyes. "I can't put on this costume, step outside, and pray no one looks too closely. I can't live terrified of a gust of wind blowing my hair back. The shame, it's worse than before, because before, at least the secret was mine." Silence filled the car. Olivia unbuckled her seatbelt. She reached across the center console and grabbed my hands, her thumbs pressed firmly into my trembling knuckles, grounding me to the earth. "Ethan," she started softly. "Don't call me that," I snapped instantly, aggressively yanking my hands back. The moment the words left my mouth, the air sucked completely out of the car. I froze. I hadn't meant to say it. The raw, violent rejection of my own name had come from a place so deep inside my stomach I didn't even know it existed. Olivia sat perfectly still. She didn't look angry. She looked at me with an expression of heartbreaking clarity. "You don't want to hide anymore," she stated. It wasn't a question. I shook my head slowly, the hot tears tracking silently down my neck, dampening the collar of my red silk dress. The exhaustion hit me in a massive wave. Decades of pretending, decades of suitcases and locked bathroom doors. I was so incredibly tired. I turned my head to look at her in the dim light of the street lamp. "I don't want to live half a life anymore. Live," I whispered, the raw truth bleeding out of my mouth. I can't just be Vivian on Thursday mornings. If I take this dress off tonight, I think it's going to kill me. Olivia stared at my bruised, tear-streaked face. She looked at the scratch on my arm. She slowly reached out, carefully wiping a smudge of black mascara from my cheekbone with her thumb. She took a slow, deep breath, and her spine straightened. "Okay," she said softly, her voice carrying the absolute weight of a vow. "Then we don't do it halfway. We take the whole path." The waiting room of Dr. Marcus Chen's endocrinology clinic smelled aggressively of lemon Lysol and stale magazine paper. I sat on a stiff vinyl chair, my knees pressed tightly together. I was wearing a simple pair of dark, high-waisted denim jeans and a fitted black turtleneck. It was a deliberately safe outfit, but underneath the cotton, my stomach was executing violent gymnastics. Olivia sat next to me, her fingers laced through mine. Vivian Hartley, a nurse in blue scrubs, stood at the heavy wooden door, holding a clipboard. My breath completely vanished. I squeezed Olivia's hand so hard her knuckles popped. But she didn't flinch. She just stood up and gently pulled me up with her. Dr. Chen's office was painfully bright. He was a soft-spoken man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He sat across his mahogany desk, sliding a glossy brochure across the polished wood. The cover read, "Understanding Feminizing Hormone Therapy." "Estrogen isn't magic," Dr. Chen explained, his voice even and clinical. "It is a second puberty. It is a biological sledgehammer. Your skin will thin. Your muscle mass will decrease. You will experience significant emotional volatility and eventually, irreversible breast development." He paused, looking dead at me. "Are you prepared for that once the train leaves the station? There are stops where you cannot turn back." I stared at the brochure. Irreversible. The word echoed in my skull. For 30 years, my body had been a prison built of testosterone. A thick, hairy, dense cage that I had to constantly drape in silks and nylons just to trick my brain into feeling human. I looked down at my large hands resting on my denim thighs. "I've been holding my breath my entire life. Dr. Chen," I whispered, the raw truth scraping against my vocal cords. "I don't want to turn back. I want to burn the station to the ground." 30 minutes later, the nurse handed me a small, translucent orange pill bottle. I held it in my palm. The plastic felt warm. When we got to the car, I didn't start the engine. I popped the white cap off the bottle. I tipped a tiny pale blue pill into my trembling palm. This is it, the end of him. My heart hammered a frantic, heavy rhythm against my sternum. I swallowed dryly, placed the little blue pill on my tongue, and took a swig from my water bottle. It slid down my throat. No fireworks, no sudden rush of pink clouds, just a quiet, terrifying, absolute certainty. Over the next 6 months, the alchemy began. It started with the skin. One morning in the shower, as the hot water beat down on my back, I ran a loofah over my forearms. I stopped. The rough, thick hide I was used to scrubbing was gone. My skin felt absurdly, unbelievably soft. It felt like the expensive silk blouses I used to hoard under the bed. Then came the ache. I was carrying a load of laundry up the stairs, wearing my favorite white lace bra. I bumped my chest slightly against the plastic rim of the laundry basket. "Ow, damn it," I yelped, dropping the basket. A sharp, tender bolt of pain shot through my nipples. I grabbed the banister, gasping for air. Olivia poked her head out of the home office. "You okay?" I reached under the collar of my shirt, pressing my fingers gently against my chest. Beneath the delicate lace of the cup, I felt it. A hard, incredibly tender bud of dense tissue right beneath the surface. Real tissue. My body was actually growing. I looked up at Olivia, tears instantly springing to my eyes, but a massive, ridiculous smile broke across my face. "My chest hurts," I sobbed out, laughing hysterically at the same time. "Liv, it actually hurts." But the physical changes were nothing compared to the psychological ones. One evening, I was sitting at the vanity mirror in our bedroom. Olivia was sitting on the edge of the mattress, holding a pitch tracking app on her phone. "Try it again," she encouraged gently. "Bring the sound out of your face, not your chest." I cleared my throat. It felt raw and scratched. I sat up straight, engaging my core, trying to force the resonance higher up into my nasal cavity, a technique a speech therapist had taught me. "Hi, I'm Vivian," I said. My voice cracked horribly. dipping back into Ethan's deep, muddy baritone on the last syllable. A sudden, overwhelming wave of rage and despair crashed into me. Without warning, a sob tore out of my throat. I didn't just cry, I wept violently, my chest heaved, my vision completely swimming in tears, mascara running in thick black rivers down my cheeks. I'm a fraud. I'll always sound like a linebacker in a wig. It's useless. Olivia was beside me in a second. She pulled me against her chest, wrapping her arms tightly around my shoulders. Hey, she shushed me, rubbing my back as I soaked the collar of her shirt with tears. Estrogen is kicking your ass today, huh? It's not fair, I bawled, my voice a high, strained squeak of pure emotion. I just want to sound like me. Listen to yourself. Viv, she whispered. Her lips pressed against my temple. I sniffled, freezing in her arms. I replayed my own hysterical crying in my head. The low, rumbling bass of my old cries was completely gone. Even in my sobbing, my voice was lighter, softer, fundamentally changed by the sheer emotional weight of the hormones. I wasn't just performing femininity anymore. The chemical reality of womanhood was completely hijacking my nervous system. I didn't have to remind myself to act like Vivian. Ethan was dead. There was only me. 2 years later, the relentless, blinding sunlight of Bangkok, Thailand slashed through the gaps in the sterile white blinds of my hospital room. The air conditioner hummed loudly, trying to fight the oppressive tropical heat outside. But inside, I was freezing. I was lying on a crisp, stiff hospital bed. I wasn't wearing my usual cashmere cardigans or my soft flowing skirts. I was draped in a terrible, scratchy blue cotton hospital gown, tied loosely in the back. My legs were encased in tight, white compression stockings to prevent blood clots. An IV needle was securely taped into the soft, hairless skin of the back of my hand, dripping clear saline into my veins. Today was the final cut, the gender confirmation surgery. In 3 hours, the last physical piece of the nightmare will be gone. A violent shiver ripped through my spine. The gown rustled loudly against the plastic mattress cover. My breath was shallow and rapid. My mouth tasted aggressively like metallic panic and morning breath. Hey, look at me. Olivia dragged a rolling stool to the edge of the bed. She leaned over the metal railing, resting her warm forearms lightly against my shivering, blanket-covered legs. She was wearing comfortable travel clothes, her hair tied in a messy bun. Exhaustion painted in purple bags under her eyes. I'm terrified. Liv, I whispered. The monitors next to me beeping an erratic rhythm as my heart rate spiked. What if I wake up and I regret it? What if the pain is too much? Flight instinct. Run. Rip the IV out. Put on your jeans and run to the airport. My brain was screaming in primitive, animal terror at the prospect of the surgeon's knife. Olivia stood up. She leaned over the metal guardrail and framed my pale, makeup-free face with both her hands. Her thumbs lightly stroked my cheekbones. You survived 30 years in a body that felt like a burning building. Vivian, she said fiercely, her brown eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that anchored my spinning mind. You survived the shame. You survived the panic attacks in the grocery store. You survived Victor. You are the strongest woman I have ever known. The word hit me. Woman. Not a cross-dresser. Not a secret hidden under a mattress. A woman. She leaned down and pressed her forehead tightly against mine. I closed my eyes. I could smell the faint scent of her vanilla perfume. The same perfume that used to mix with the smell of my fear when she caught me wearing her clothes 3 years ago. I will be right here in this chair when you open your eyes, she promised, her breath warm against my lips. I'm not going anywhere. The heavy oak door of the room swung open. 2 Thai nurses in green scrubs wheeled a metal gurney into the room. Mrs. Hartley, the lead nurse, smiled gently. It is time. I opened my eyes. I looked down at my hands, the clear nail polish, the soft, rounded curves of my wrists. I looked at the slight, unmistakable swell of my breasts pressing against the thin blue fabric of the gown. The terrifying panic suddenly dissolved into the cold, sterile air of the hospital room. I uncurled my fists, relaxing back into the pillows. I nodded slowly. I'm ready, I said. My voice was smooth, effortless, naturally resting in a soft alto, as they transferred me onto the gurney and rolled me out into the blindingly bright, white corridor toward the operating theater. The anesthetist pushed a syringe into my IV line. Count backward from 10, please. A voice echoed above me. I whispered, feeling a heavy, dark, beautifully warm blanket wrap around my brain. 9. The sharp smell of iodine faded. 8. I thought of the black canvas suitcase under the bed. I imagined dropping a match into it and watching the cheap nylons burn. 7. Goodbye, Ethan. I closed my eyes, entirely surrendering to the dark. The late October breeze carried the sharp, earthy scent of dry, crushed leaves and wood smoke. Our backyard was bathed in the spectacular, golden hour light of autumn. Strings of warm fairy lights hung loosely between the ancient oak branches, glowing softly against the darkening blue sky. I stood on the stone patio, feeling the firm grip of the flat earth beneath my shoes. I wasn't wearing stilettos, I wasn't wearing a waist trainer, or thick contouring makeup to hide masculine jaws, or bulky hip pads. I was just wearing a simple flowing, burnt orange wrap dress. The soft, lightweight crepe fabric moved with a fluid, organic grace over the natural, estrogen-softened curves of my hips and waist. I took a deep, full breath of the cold autumn air, letting my lungs expand completely without the agonizing restriction of tight corsets or padded bras. I looked down at the hem of my dress violently fluttering in the wind. Let it blow, I thought, a quiet smile curling my lips. There is absolutely nothing left to hide. There were no crowds here. No neighbors, no Victor Blacks. It was just me. Dr. Chen holding a glass of champagne near the fire pit, Grace Mitchell chatting happily by the food table, and Olivia. Olivia walked across the freshly cut grass, holding 2 crystal champagne flutes. She wore a stunning navy pantsuit, her hair falling flawlessly over her shoulders. She stopped in front of me, handing me a glass. The cold crystal felt grounding against my warm palm. "You looking," she started, her eyes raking slowly over my face, taking in the soft, relaxed posture of my shoulders, the completely unguarded joy in my eyes. "You look at peace." "I am, Val," I breathed out. I reached out with my free hand, slipping my soft, delicate fingers perfectly between hers. The contrast wasn't jarring anymore. We just looked like 2 women, standing in a garden, holding hands. This wasn't a wedding. We were already married. But as the wind swept through the trees, violently shaking the dying autumn leaves to the ground, we stood facing each other. 3 years ago, I walked into our bedroom and found a terrified ghost wearing my clothes, Olivia said softly, her voice barely carrying over the wind. I thought I was losing my husband. A tight, emotional lump formed in my throat. I squeezed her hand. "I was wrong," she continued, tears shining bright in her brown eyes. "I didn't lose anything. I gained the most beautiful, authentic partner in the world. I love you. Vivian Hartley. All of you." Finally, my chest heaved. The tears didn't sting this time. They were entirely warm, overflowing with sheer gratitude. I didn't care if they ruined my light mascara. I didn't care if I looked messy. "You gave me permission to breathe. Live," I whispered, my voice breaking naturally. "When I was drowning in the dark, you handed me the key to my own cage. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." We clinked our glasses together. The sharp ting of crystal rang out in the quiet garden. Later that evening, after the small group of guests had gone home, Olivia and I walked down the quiet, tree-lined sidewalk of our neighborhood. The street lamps buzzed faintly overhead. The cool autumn wind kicked up again, swirling around my legs. The orange fabric of my dress swept fiercely around my calves, brushing against my bare skin. I didn't reach down to pull it straight. I didn't hunch my shoulders. I didn't lower my eyes to the concrete. I kept my chin perfectly level. My heels clicked a steady, confident rhythm against the pavement. A car drove past us, its headlights illuminating me entirely for a brief second before disappearing into the dark. My heart didn't skip a beat. My palms didn't sweat. I just pulled Olivia's arm a little tighter against my side, leaning my head softly onto her shoulder as we walked home. The suitcase under the bed was gone. The fear was gone. There was only the soft rustle of silk in the wind, the comforting weight of a dress against my skin, and the absolute, beautiful peace of simply being Vivian.